I don't like it. I hate it. It's a disease. It's a just drug that you just can't get to stop. I've lost everything. My family.
Heat. It does not just rise from the pavement in Kensington, it radiates. It carries the scent of a city at war with itself, a mixture of burnt plastic, exhaust fumes, and the metallic tang of neglect. You are standing under the roaring L train at Kensington and Allegheny. It is late 2025. If you listen to the press releases from City Hall, this neighborhood is in the middle of a revival. They will tell you that the encampments have been cleared, that crime is down, and that order is being restored to one of America's most notorious zip codes. But look closer. Turn the corner off Kensington Avenue, away from the police cruisers stationed on the main strip like occupying tanks. Walk into the side streets of Harrogate or the shadows of Port Richmond. There, you will see the truth. The people did not vanish. They were just pushed into the dark. You see a figure slumped against a warehouse wall, frozen in a position that defies gravity. This isn't the fentanyl knot of 3 years ago. This is something deeper, darker. It is the effective metatomidine, a veterinary sedative 100 times stronger than xylazine, now dominating the street supply. It slows the heart until it barely beats. It turns human beings into living statues. Don't come out here, a resident whispers, hurrying past. This isn't a neighborhood anymore. It's a containment zone. Welcome to Homeless US News. Today, we are tearing down the yellow tape and stepping inside the official narrative to find the human reality underneath. We are investigating the aftermath of the historic 2020 for sweeps, the rise of a new chemical weapon that is baffling doctors, and the controversial wellness courts that promise treatment but often deliver confusion. Is Kensington being saved, or is it being erased? Over the next hour, we will dissect the anatomy of this collapse. We will look at the economics that trap residents in a cycle of poverty, the pharmacology that is rewriting the rules of addiction, and the political battles determining who gets to live here and who gets pushed out. This is not just a story about drugs. It is a story about displacement, about the silver tsunami of elderly homelessness, and about a system that manages misery rather than solving it. This is the rival perspective. This is the truth about Kensington, the displacement strategy. Where did everyone go? To understand the reality of Kensington in 2025, you have to go back to May 2024. That was the month the city of Philadelphia launched its massive encampment resolution. At dawn, police and sanitation crews descended on the 3,000 and 3,100 blocks of Kensington Avenue. For years, the stretch was the visual epicenter of the crisis, a tunnel of tents and misery under the train tracks. The city dismantled the structures. They power washed the sidewalks. They erected metal barricades to keep people from sitting down. On the evening news, it looked like a victory. The sidewalks were clear. The Walmart of heroin was closed for business. But residents know the truth. The market didn't close, it just moved. It is called the balloon effect. You squeeze a balloon in one place, and it bulges out in another. The hundreds of people who lived on the avenue migrated. They moved to the parks like McPherson Square, turning playgrounds into triage centers. They moved into the abandoned row homes that dot the landscape like rotten teeth. They moved to the underpasses along the I-95 corridor. We spoke to a local resident named Elena. It's quieter on the main street, she admits, looking over her shoulder. But now they are in my alley. They are in my backyard. I have to check my steps for needles every morning before my kids go to school. The city cleaned up the image, but they didn't clean up the problem. The 2025 point-in-time count showed that while the number of visible tents on the main avenue dropped, the number of unsheltered individuals in the broader district remains stubbornly high, hovering around 4,800 people. They are just harder to reach now. This displacement has dangerous consequences. When people use drugs in hidden alleyways or abandoned houses, they are using alone. If they overdose, no one is there to see it. No one is there to administer Narcan. The cleanup has inadvertently created a higher risk of death by invisibility. This is the reality of the revival. It is not a solution, it is a scattering. It is a policy of optics over outcomes. The new chemical warfare, enter the rhino. If you thought fentanyl was the end of the story, you were wrong. The drug supply in Kensington has mutated again, and the results are terrifying. For years, the scourge was xylazine or tranq. It caused those horrific, necrotic skin ulcers we have all seen. But in mid-2024, toxicologists began seeing a new spike in the data. By early 2025, it was confirmed medetomidine had arrived. Street name, rhino tranq. Medetomidine is a synthetic sedative used to tranquilize large animals. It is structurally similar to xylazine, but is significantly more potent. It causes profound sedation. It causes extreme bradycardia, slowing the heart rate to dangerous levels. It's not a high anymore, says Thomas, a man we interviewed near Somerset Station. He has been on the street for 2 years. You don't feel good. You just vanish. You wake up for hours later. Your legs are numb because you haven't moved and you're sick again. It's a trap. The rise of medetomidine has complicated everything. Naloxone, the miracle drug for opioid overdoses, does not work on sedatives. First responders are finding people who have been given Narcan. Their breathing might be restored, but they won't wake up. They remain in a chemical coma, vulnerable to robbery, assault, and the elements. Furthermore, the withdrawal from medetomidine is reportedly worse than fentanyl or xylazine. It involves severe anxiety, tremors, and heart palpitations that can be fatal. Traditional detox protocols aren't working. The medical community is scrambling to catch up, but on the street, the chemistry is always one step ahead. This isn't just addiction, it is a mass poisoning event. The people on these streets are guinea pigs for cartel chemists, who prioritize potency over human life. And the victims are often the most vulnerable, those with untreated mental illness, who are self-medicating not to get high, but just to silence the noise in their heads. The roots of the rot, economics of abandonment. Why Kensington? Why here? It is not an accident. It is the result of a century of economic violence. Kensington was once the workshop of the world. It was a thriving hub of textile mills and factories. But when the industry left in the mid-20th century, it took the jobs and the capital with it. What remained was a vacuum, and the drug trade filled it. The median household income in Kensington in 2025 hovers around $25,000. That is less than half the national average. The poverty rate is staggering, but it goes deeper than money. It is about housing. In Philadelphia, over 40,000 renters spend more than half of their income on rent. This is the rent burden, when you are paying that much just to keep a roof over your head. One minor disaster, a broken car, a medical bill, a lost shift can push you onto the street. Once you are on the street, the systemic trap closes around you. You lose your ID in a sweep. You can't get a job without an ID. You can't get housing without a job. You can't get health care without an address. And then there is the mental health crisis. Estimates suggest that over 70% of the homeless population in Kensington suffers from untreated mental illness. We aren't just talking about depression. We are talking about schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and severe PTSD. The shutting down of mental health institutions decades ago, without building a community care infrastructure to replace them, has turned our streets into open-air asylums. The people you see shouting at invisible enemies aren't just on drugs. They are sick, and the only medication available to them costs $5 a bag on the corner. This is the root of the collapse. It is not a moral failing of the individuals on the street. It is a structural failure of a society that values real estate over human life. The policy wars, wellness or coercion? In 2025, the city of Philadelphia is trying a new tactic. They call it the wellness court. The idea is simple. Stop cycling addicts through the prison system. Instead, when someone is arrested for a low-level drug offense, give them a choice. Go to jail or go to treatment. Mayor Sherelle Parker's administration touts this as a compassionate approach, and the numbers show some promise. By late 2025, over 300 people had entered the wellness court program. For some, it has been a lifeline of forced pause that allowed them to clear their heads and get into a bed. But critics argue it is coerced treatment. They point out that there simply aren't enough long-term treatment beds available. You can divert someone to treatment, but if the rehab center is full, or if they kick you out after 30 days, you end up right back on Kensington Avenue with a lower tolerance and a higher risk of death. Simultaneously, a new battlefront has opened up regarding mobile outreach. In late 2024, the City Council passed restrictions on mobile needle exchange and food distribution vans in the Kensington area. The argument was that these vans were attracting crowds and contributing to the nuisance. Organizations like Prevention Point and Savage Sisters fought back. They argued that these vans are the only thing keeping people alive. They provide clean needles to prevent HIV, wound care for the horrific xylazine ulcers, and food for the starving. They are trying to legislate us out of existence, said an outreach worker from Savage Sisters. They think if they remove the help, the people will leave. But the people won't leave. They will just die faster. This is the central conflict of 2025, the tension between cleaning up the neighborhood for the residents who live there and saving the lives of the people who survive on its streets. It is a zero-sum game where there seem to be no winners. Voices from the abyss. Statistics are easy to ignore. Faces are not. We met Ben sitting on a crate outside a shuttered pawn shop. He is 26. He grew up in the suburbs. He played varsity baseball. An injury led to Percocet. Percocet led to heroin. Heroin led him here. My mom thinks I'm dead, Ben says, staring at his hands. I haven't called her in 2 years. What am I supposed to say? Hey mom, I'm sleeping in an alley and my skin is rotting. I can't go back until I'm fixed, and I can't get fixed out here. Ben's story destroys the myth that this is a moral failing. He isn't having a good time. He is in hell. I don't want to get high, he whispers. I just want to not be sick. That's all it is now. Just staying well enough to walk. Then there is the story of the silver tsunami. We are seeing more gray hair on the avenue than ever before. Elderly people, priced out of their apartments, whose social security checks couldn't keep up with inflation. We met a woman in her 60s named Martha. She isn't an addict. She sleeps in a church doorway. I worked for 40 years, she tells us, indignantly. I was a secretary. I paid my taxes. How did I end up here? How does a country let this happen to its grandmothers? These are the human casualties of our policy failures. They are not ghosts. They are our neighbors, our parents, our children. The nonprofit front line, holding the line. Where the government fails, the community steps in. The true heroes of Kensington are not the politicians giving speeches. They are the people in the trenches. In 2025, organizations like Prevention Point Philadelphia remain the only safe harbor in the storm. Inside their doors, nurses clean wounds that look like something from a horror movie. Volunteers serve meals with care. They treat people by name. Savage Sisters Recovery takes a different approach. Their outreach teams, many of them survivors of these very streets, walk the blocks every single day. They don't just hand out Narcan and sterile water, they hand out hope. They sit on the curb with someone who hasn't spoken to another human being all day. They remind them they still matter. Project Home focuses on the long game, rebuilding futures. They offer recovery residences where people can rest, reflect, and rebuild. These organizations are fighting a two-front war, one against the drug supply and another against the political pressure to shut them down. City council members have pushed to restrict mobile outreach vans, arguing they attract crime. But the providers argue they are the only thing keeping people alive. Harm reduction isn't enabling, says an advocate. It's keeping someone alive long enough for them to make a different choice. You can't go to rehab if you're dead. These groups prove that compassion is not a weakness. It is a muscle. And in Kensington, it is the only muscle that hasn't atrophied. The mirror. So here we are. We have walked the avenue. We have seen the wounds. We have smelled the smoke. Kensington is not just a neighborhood in Philadelphia. It is a mirror reflecting America's deepest failures. It reflects our failure to treat mental illness, our failure to provide affordable housing, our failure to protect our communities from the predation of pharmaceutical greed and the cartels that followed. But it also reflects something else. It reflects our capacity for resilience. The people of Kensington, the residents, the outreach workers, and yes, the people in the tents are survivors. They are enduring conditions that would break most of us. We cannot look away. To look away is to accept this as normal. And there is nothing normal about a human being rotting alive on a sidewalk in the richest country on earth. This is a call to conscience. It is a call to demand better policies that prioritize healing over handcuffs, housing over shelters, and people over profit. It is a call to support the organizations on the ground, donate to the street medicine teams, support the shelters, and most importantly, it is a call to change how we see. When you see someone struggling with addiction, do not see a monster. Do not see a criminal. See a human being who is in pain. See a son. See a daughter. See a person who, with the right help, could be the one to save the next person. The story of Kensington is still being written, and we all hold the pen. Thank you for watching Homeless US News. If this video moved you, please share it. Let the world see what is happening here. Let the silence be broken. Subscribe to our channel to continue this journey with us. We will not stop shining the light until everyone has a way home. Now, go out there.